Welcome to Evilive, the live media commentary show that answers the question, how much should you actually give the devil? Subscribe if you're new to the channel, because today we're reviewing HBO's Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 3, Second of His Name. Now, this episode was directed by Greg Yaitanes, and it was written by Gabe Fonseca and Ryan Condal, and it aired yesterday, September 4th, 2022. Initial thoughts about this episode was this keeps getting better and better. This show does not let up. It's insane the amount of overt and covert information that's being shared with the audience at any given moment. And this episode was ripe with not only that, but you got to give a shout out to the music, because the entire sequence, when Daemon gets off of his dragon near the end and he hears that his brother, King Viserys, is sending aid and he doesn't want it, you sort of get that sort of audio hum that just starts persisting. And it goes through the entire length of his sort of ending the war down at the Stepstones, because he's just driven. He's like, look, I don't need help from the guy who refused help before. He is not going to come in here and take all of my glory. I'm going to end this right now. And he draws out all of the crab feeders men, and we'll get into all that in just a second here. I do want to give, well, you know what? Let's just start with Daemon Targaryen, because I've done a full 180 on Matt Smith. I started off, I don't like his face, I don't really care about his acting, I don't really care about the character that much, to now I adore this character. This character is amazing. He's got so much promise, and knowing what's to come, I cannot wait to be a part of watching this with everyone else, because just to be honest, Matt Smith is doing a great job as Daemon Targaryen. I mean, he's straight up killing it, both on screen, literally, and in character. Literally. So let's start with the end then, right? Daemon and Lord Corlys, along with Lord Corlys' brother Vaemond and his son Laenor Velaryon, are all sort of talking about how they're going to defeat this damn crab feeder who is being backed by the triad of cities over in Essos. And the war is not going well. And, you know, people are petitioning to the king, look, whether you like it or not, we're at war with the triad. And we have to, you know, we have soldiers, we have troops, we have family members, we have people down there fighting and dying right now. We can't just ignore it. So finally, after now Queen Allison is telling her now husband, King Viserys, look, you have to do something about this. You cannot just sit back and watch these people die, and not just because this is, you know, your own feelings of being slighted by them going to war against your wishes, or not even consulting you and going to war, but for the good of the realm, man. Send some support. And so he sends a letter. It's received at this sort of council meeting that they're having, which is almost breaking out in a straight up mutiny between Lord Corlys' brother Vaemond and himself over whether or not they should continue fighting and supporting Daemon Targaryen if the king won't even support his own brother in this fight. So he ends up arriving, and then a group of Kingsguard, not Kingsguard, but they're just, you know, soldiers from the realm, are delivering the king's message to Prince Daemon. And he's like, I don't want any of this. I don't need your help. You didn't want to help me back then. You're not going to help me now. I'm going to end this before your troops even get on scene. Just wants to lay it all out there. So without his dragon, throughout the entire battle without his dragon, I was stunned by this. But he goes under the you know, promise of a white flag of surrender, which of course he's not going to surrender. He's Prince Daemon. He goes and he stands there waving the flag. It draws out the crab feeder. The crab feeder tells all of his troops to go out there. They've got archers lining the ceiling just in case, the wall, just in case, you know, this turns out the way that everyone knows it's going to turn out. And Prince Daemon turns into the Terminator. just knocking people down left and right, tearing up these triads troops and the crab feeders troops, and the archers are trying to get him, but they can't seem to get him. And yeah, it's a little unrealistic, like a lot of unrealistic. He would have been a pincushion by now, but he finally, he gets 3 arrows in him. He feels like, this is it. I have to do my last stand. My people better start supporting me like they said they would. And you see Lord Corley's troops coming up from the rear. And then suddenly, Lord Corley's son, Laenor Velaryon, comes in with his dragon sea smoke and just starts smoking people. The archers, all the men, all of the triad soldiers that came around to end Daemon's assault. And it is this beautiful moment. And then we get to see Daemon walking out with half of the crab feeder, because he just cleaved him in half with his Valyrian steel sword. And what's beautiful about this, and a little terrifying, is that the crab feeder had like stone skin, and you're touching him. Like, stone skin can transfer through the air, and we saw that in the original Game of Thrones on screen with okay, I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, it was transferred, I believe, through the air. And so now he's literally holding the dude's hand. Isn't Daemon afraid of getting stone skin? Or is he like immune because he's Targaryen? I don't know. He's from old Viserys. Anyway, he doesn't seem to care, but it is so tough seeing him just caked in blood. And then half of the crab feeder there, ending it before the king's troops even get there. Just straight up saying, I don't need you. I'm king here. Which, of course, is going to lead into the next episode, which is going to be great. Now, this episode had a 3-year jump. Not only a year of the king and Allison Hightower getting married, which is weird, we didn't see the wedding, but not that it really matters, because we're picking up with the heir, Aegon II, King Viserys and Queen Alicent's son. And if you know anything about Game of Thrones sort of hierarchy of power and ascent, he should be the next king, not Rhaenyra. Now, the problem with that is that the king already stood up and overtly said that Princess Rhaenyra is going to be the next ruler of Westeros. And everyone already bent the knee and swore fealty to her. But now with the son in the mix and another baby in the oven, that throws the former succession all up into the air, because every one of the men of the realm, from the maesters to the what do they call the clerics, like the holy men? I can't remember right now. Anyway, from the maesters to the holy men of the church to just every knight and lord of the realm, it's a patriarchy. They don't care about women being in positions of power. They want men. They want a king. They need someone strong and bold and testosterone to rule. And that's just, it's ridiculous, but it's how it was. So they're going to, just by nature of Rhaenyra being a woman. And it's said beautifully by Otto Hightower, too. He's like, look, she could be Jaehaerys Reborn, who is supposed to be the greatest king in the Targaryen dynasty thus far. And it wouldn't matter because she's a girl. That's really what it comes down to. She has ovaries instead of testicles. We can't have that. It's too much to handle, apparently. And so he's like, look, it's your son. When he's talking to Allison, his daughter, he's like, look, your son Aegon is going to be the next ruler, whether you like it or not. That's just how these things work from God to man. And the real trouble between all of this is that Allison genuinely loves Rhaenyra still as a friend, and now as a surrogate mother, even though she doesn't act like she doesn't want to put herself in that position of acting like a mother, because she's not. They're peers, they're friends. There was almost even maybe a little bit of affection, a little deeper than friends, like best friends or bosom buddies or something. And so she's doing her best to try to heal those wounds and support her friend Rhaenyra. And she doesn't want to supplant Rhaenyra at this point, which I find so incredibly interesting, because that means she's either going to have a change of heart, or she's going to be backing her family's play to force her, against her own wishes, to put Aegon up there in control. And I think that adds another dimension that is so amazing, because it's set up to be like, oh, well, now Alicent is going to challenge Rhaenyra over, for her son to be the ruler, and it's going to be these two women going at it. But Alicent doesn't want to. So that's just really interesting to me. Okay, so as cool as that is, now we have King Viserys in the worst spot since he had to choose, to have his son cut out of his wife's body when she was pregnant. I mean, he is in between a rock and a hard spot. Not only is Prince Daemon giving him shit with going to war in the Stepstones against his wishes without even asking the crown's permission, and Lord Valerian going with him, Lord Corlys Valerian, but now his daughter is refusing to even acknowledge that anyone, that she should be carrying on the traditions of what it means to be a princess and the rights and duties that go therewith. I mean, she's supposed to be married at this point, and she doesn't want to marry anyone. And so, Lannisters, man, I hate all the Lannisters. I cannot stand Lannisters. I'm a Stark man. The Lannisters can suck it. But even in this show, the Lannisters suck. So the Lannister comes up, trying to propose in his own douchey way to Rhaenyra at the great hunt on behalf of the Prince Aegon turning 2 years old. And let's just say really quick, a hunt. No, they have the hunters doing the hunting. The king's just waiting to do the killing blow. That's not hunting. That's bullshit, is what that is. And I want to talk about hunting more in just a second here. So Lannister is doing his best to sort of swoon her in the most douchey college frat boy manner he could find. Get her drunk and ply her with suggestion. Rhaenyra is not having any of it. She just gives him his wine back and walks away, and he ends up having to resort to going to King Viserys and trying to propose the wedding to him. But King Viserys doesn't want Rhaenyra to be supplanted. And we see in this episode, King Viserys is sort of wishy-washy when he gets really drunk. Wine back in the day was not as strong as it is now. And so him drinking a whole bunch of wine is not the same as drinking a whole bunch of wine nowadays. Everything from liquor to beer to wine is infinitely more potent today than it was back then. And so it was very watered down, and they didn't let it ferment as long because they were, turning it over so much. Beer was used as food. Like, you would have beer every day, multiple times a day. The pharaohs would pay their slaves in beer. And it had medicinal value as well, because it had natural bacteria in it that sort of aided, in healing and stuff. And it's all factual, based on history. But it's just interesting that, you're watching King Viserys drink so much wine. You're like, wow, he's going to be like passed out. But no, it was weaker. It was like flavored water back then. So, it's not the same at all. So anyway, he's drinking a lot. As soon as he has enough that he's getting really drunk, he starts to sort of second guess himself. Like, all this politicking, should I have chosen my daughter to be the next heir to the throne when it's causing all of these problems with everyone else? Did I just make the biggest mistake for her, and the realm as well? But he comes to his senses, and at the end, he's like, look, I'm not going to supplant you. And if you don't want any of the suggestions I have to get married, you have to get married. Full stop. Just choose someone you want. That's all I care about. Because I've said this every single episode, King Viserys is a good person. And that's why he's a bad king, because he cares too much. He loves too much. He loves his family too much. And he wants his daughter not to be the typical woman that you would find in these realms where she is raised and bred to serve a man. He wants his daughter to be happy. And that means being in charge of your own life. And that's something that just did not happen back then. You did not even have the option, not even as a man, let alone a woman. You always had to serve your house or your family or your name or your king or your lord. Always. It was never about you. That's a very Western idea that only happened post-Victorian age in our own life. So I always find it so interesting because this is breaking the mold. I mean, it's the same way, I would be with my daughter, whom, I desperately love with all my heart. I would not want to force her into a marriage where she's unhappy. I don't want to force her to do anything. I want her to find her own way in life and be happy. Find some semblance of happiness on her own accord. That's true independence, and that's what every individual should have. That's how King Viserys sees it, and it's going to cost him dearly. It's going to cost the realm dearly in the end. But ultimately, it ingratiates finally his daughter Rhaenyra to him, and she leaves his company very, very happy near the end of the episode. But while they're on the hunt, let me talk about the hunt before we get to Rhaenyra's experience at the hunt. I grew up around hunters. I'm not a hunter myself. I've watched hunting. I've watched animals being killed. It's not, it's not the end of the world. This really bothered me. Hearing that elk scream, they call it what did they call it? A heart? I'm looking at my notes really quick to see if I could find it. Anyway, it was basically it's an elk is what it is. But he like King Viserys, they finally catch the elk, and King Viserys goes in with the spear that the Lannisters gave him as as sort of a present to his son's second birthday, which great present for a 2-year-old. But he ends up stabbing the elk sort of in the throat, but not going into the heart to kill it immediately. And you're just hearing this elk crying out in pain and being tortured, actively tortured. It was the hardest animal kill I've ever watched in my life. And I've never been one of those people that's like, oh, I can't watch animals being hurt. I love animals, but I understand it's not really happening on screen. And so, suspension of disbelief. This one, for whatever reason, it was a digital animal. It wasn't even real. Those cries, though, those elk cries, sweet hell, that got me. It got me deep. And then he had to stab it again just to kill it. But the time it took from that first wound to the elk actually dying was way too long to make that poor animal suffer. It's just not fucking cool, man. Okay, so that being said, after Princess Rhaenyra gets yelled at by her father, King Viserys, she's just like, I don't want anything to do with this hunt at all. And she just races off on her own. And it was, it was Kristen Cole. Sir Kristen Cole, who's a Kingsguard at this point, who goes chasing after her just to make sure she's safe and to stop her from doing anything to harm herself or actually getting into danger while she's out in the wilderness on her own. And they end up talking and sharing ideas. Like, she's like, I'm so miserable. And he's like, look, anyone in the realm would gladly take your place in whatever you're doing. They're like, yeah, because they haven't ever lived my life, is why they would want to live it. And then he's like, look, you're more powerful than you think you are. You rose me to this level of being the Kingsguard, and everything I have is because of your whim. You are infinitely more powerful than you allow yourself to seem right now. And she genuinely appreciates that, which is beautiful. And so there's this burgeoning something happening between the two of them. The sad part about it is she can't choose him as a husband. She just can't. He's a Kingsguard. He doesn't have a life anymore of his own. It is devoted solely 24 hours a day to protecting the king or queen or both. Not love, not family, not heirs, no titles. They forsake all of that in order to be the Kingsguard. So their burgeoning relationship is doomed to fail, which is sad and unfortunate. Because, let's be honest, Kristen Cole's adorable. He's responsible. He's effective. He's talented. He's handsome as hell. Like, he's everything except for available, which is a problem, for Rhaenyra. Okay, so anyway, they end up sort of camping overnight, and a boar attacks them. I can't help but draw similarities between how in the original Game of Thrones it was King Baratheon that ended up being skewered by a boar that ended his reign, and now we're seeing a boar attack Rhaenyra before she even gets her reign, sort of as a nail in the coffin. Not only is Aegon the second born to take the reign as far as every male in the kingdom is concerned, now the boar is coming to do the job as well, to make sure that she doesn't survive. But she does, which is great. And then she actually sees the white stag, which is in all mythology. It's in every fantasy mythology. It is like an omen or a guide or some sort of ancient wisdom in the form of this white elk or white horse or white deer of some sort. Or sometimes it's a unicorn. So this white elk shows up. Kristen Cole starts drawing a sword to kill it, and Rhaenyra's like, no, leave it alone. And it's so beautiful because the entire time you're getting all of the king's council, small council, telling him how fortuitous it is that there's been a white hart, I think they call it, seen, and that's what they're actually hunting, trying to kill, and that's supposed to be seen in the first men, as before the Valerians came, or the Targaryens came to Westeros. That was how you knew that a king was ordained by the gods. Because the first men worshipped multiple gods. It was actually the Andals that came over that forced the idea of the seven gods that is sort of the power right now in the church. But it was seen as the sort of foreshadowing of a king coming. And so everyone was freaking out. Otto Hightower was virtually coming at the idea. He was so excited about it. And for it not to show up for Aegon, but it showed up for Rhaenyra. I keep saying Daenerys. Rhaenyra. That is straight up us being informed, a little foreshadowing, that there is going to be strife. As if we didn't already know, of course, but there is going to be strife between Aegon II and Rhaenyra. And I mean, Otto Hightower, even the Hand of the King, suggested, well, why don't you just marry Rhaenyra to Aegon II? That solves all your problems. And King Viserys is like, he's 2 years old. I'm not going to marry my daughter to her 2-year-old brother. Are you out of your mind? The most absurd thing. And the fact is most of the Targaryens did intermarry in their family, but they were closer to the same age. It wasn't like this massive, 15, 17-year gap in age, which is ridiculous. So, the king's having none of that idea. And then another one of his men come and suggest, well, why don't you marry her to Laenor Velaryon? That then strengthens the bond that was almost torn apart by your refusal to marry his daughter. If you combine the Velaryon and the Targaryen houses, it will not only seal that rift, but also ensure the safety and the future of the realm. And the king, in the end, says, Rhaenyra, you choose your own. Now, I know what happens later on, and so I don't want to spoil it for anyone watching who doesn't know, but everything they're foreshadowing about trouble, it's coming. It's coming big. And it doesn't matter who she marries. It doesn't matter who she sides with or who backs her plays. You're fighting between a male heir and a female appointed heir. And unfortunately, that's just the way that this world works. The known world of George R.R. Martin. Women are second-class citizens at best. And that's just it. It sucks. Because I do think, given an opportunity, I think Rhaenyra would be an amazing queen. I think she would rule over a peaceful land. And when she had to drop the hammer, she would definitely drop the hammer. She's a dragon rider. Not even King Viserys is much of a dragon rider anymore after Balerion died. He never took up another dragon. He just sort of gave it up. He's not a warrior. He's a loving husband and father. He's not a good king, and that sucks because I really, really like his character a lot. Not as much as I like Rhaenyra, but I'm starting to like Allison a lot more, the current queen, because she loves her friend Rhaenyra. She loves her king, her husband. She loves her family, the Hightowers. She's going to find herself in a position just like Rhaenyra, I think, where she's caught between family duty and the realm and her love of her friendship and her new family with her husband and her sister, or daughter, I guess is what she would be. It's gonna be great. This show is so amazing. I can't wait to keep watching it every week, 7:00 my time, every Sunday night. It's so awesome. I love it so much. All right. So my favorite parts of this episode was watching Prince Daemon kick ass and take names at the very end of this against the crab feeder. It was amazing. The music was stellar. The setting, the cinematography, everything was great. My only complaint about it is where the hell was his dragon? And the last part, my least favorite part of this episode, where the hell was his dragon? In the final fight, you don't have your dragon? I get you does the dragon not respond to you unless you're riding it? Is that it? Because it seems like the dragon would come to protect him. And you saw the crab feeder look in the skies like, where is his dragon? He's here somewhere. I know he is. But he never showed up. What the hell? I would be pissed. I'd be like, dude, we're bros. I got your back, you got my back, right? Where the hell were you? I'd be pissed. So anyway, as far as ratings for this episode goes, it's a 5 across the board. This is a great episode, and this is the best TV period right now that's happening. I'm enjoying Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. Of course, I love What We Do in the Shadows. And there's a couple other ones like Reservation Dogs, which is just amazing. We watched British Baking Show is about to come on, which I'm a huge fan of, which I don't know, maybe weird, but I adore it. This is the best thing on TV since the original Game of Thrones series was on. And that says a lot because there's been a lot of really great TV going on streaming. But anyway, 5 Evil Eyes, because this is amazing. If you're not watching this, it's only 3 episodes in. Get your ass out there and get in on it because this is the best TV out there right now, period. And that is all I got for you today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Always remember, evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there and be evil.